we've been talking about getting to the back, right? And I don't believe people can get to the back if there's inside positioning controlled by them, right? Anytime that you would try to get to the back and you don't have this positioning here, aka inside, I don't believe that you'll have success, right? But digging elbows is important regardless what position you're in, right? So today, what we're gonna basically work on is digging elbows, okay? What that is I'm going to take whatever arm I have, and I'm going to basically wedge it inside, and then I'm going to work it up, right? So where eventually his elbow should be in line with his shoulder or past his shoulder. Does that make sense? This position is relatively weak because it already isolates the shoulder and in the movements that it can do, right? But after it gets to a certain threshold, right? So like here, it is no longer in the picture of defense, right? If it's like this, and I was putting pressure down, it's still there. If it's past that, what is it doing?
Nothing.
Very little. It can technically frame onto the inside and try to push me away with this little muscle there, right? But he better be really strong or get better positioning with his hips and his head, right? Until that happens, he's not gonna win that fight, right? And I should be stopping that with his other hand, right? If he tries to get better positioning, his hand should be working, right? If it's just out here willy-nilly, and I put his hand up like this, I'm not holding anything, okay? But today's lesson is about digging these elbows, right? Always small things to get into tight spaces, right? So we're gonna basically make flat hands, right? And we're gonna basically just wedge ourselves in there. And we're gonna make almost like an angular scoop, right? Any of this type of motion. You see I'm coming to cup it, and then reinforce the floor. If I stay up and we're fighting, right, and he pushes down, right, and I'm like, it's gonna be a fight, right? Where now, if he can stay tight for me, right, and I just do this, every time I touch the floor, it's a lock. He does not have the added benefit of being able to put down pressure. If he puts down pressure down, right, where he's trying to basically reinforce this like elbow, right, all he's going to do if he does it is give me the other one. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so like I have the added benefit of like being on top. This is removed when we're in turtle, right? If we were in turtle and I wanted to pull his elbows, right, I'm pulling his elbow, the floor is there. He could literally just put weight and pressure down into it, and I am not moving this. Does that make sense? So the added benefit of us being like this is we can put pressure, right? And this lock helps us maintain and win this fight, right? So when we're here, if you only get this far on your initial peel, just lock it up, right? And then you're basically going to use hip rotation and head positioning, right, to increase each time, right? And then people talk about the finger walk. If he stays super tight, right, and I try to finger walk this up, I'm gonna make very little progress, right? Where if he stays tight, right, and I literally just do this, does that make sense? Right? So we should be using hips and bodies, right? And what we're gonna do is, again, you're gonna cause like a scoop. So like even if you're like super tight, right, there's always gonna be a space there. Put your hand in, right? It's almost like if I was punching, except I'm gonna do a knife, right? You can catch this from sides. You can catch this from like using just your thighs, right? Let's say I was positioned over here, right? I started to walk my hips up. Does that make sense? So I just want you to start to expose this space. Does that make sense? I don't care how you do it. Just play with it, work it, right? And then, you know, find what makes yours the most successful. As the partner, right, give mild resistance initially and then work your resistance up as you'll go. Tracking? Okay, thank you. You should find it easier when you're frying these elbows, right? If you can take and control a head one direction, basically crushing, right? You see how I'm taking his spine out of slight alignment, right? And you see how on my hips, I should be settled down, weight chest down, right? If I miss these type of things, right, well, my effect on his hips, right, let's say that I am being loose with my hips, I do the head alignment and I do the chest, right, and I start to pry, where's he going, right? See how it's gone? See how I can't get it, right? So now, I stay heavy on my hips, but I don't take the chest control, right? And I walk this and I do this. Does that make sense? Yeah. See how light I am on my chest? So we're gonna take our hand, push it to the other side, keep our chest and our hips down, walk it in. And then we can walk our hips up a little if we want, right? We shouldn't be starting this fight up like this with his elbows super tight, right? Because again, he has access to our hips and a lot of control to rotate and to drive, right? He could literally basically just kip, press, bridge, any of that kind of stuff, because we don't control any of the real inside positioning, even though our legs are trapped around this individual, right? Where like, if I was controlling inside positioning, right? Now, if he does any of that kind of stuff, right? I'm wrapped around his outside, but I'm actually controlling the inside positioning, right? How? By pressure and body, right? Because I'm closed on both sides, right? Now, chest, again, we want it down, drive in, right? And this should be uncomfortable for them. Not like super uncomfortable, but uncomfortable enough that like, I shouldn't be just, you know, laying here. I should be kind of driving forward, small drive, right? Hand, you're almost gonna punch the ground or scoop underneath the head, your choice, right? You're just gonna take the head and put it over a little bit, right? What this does is we can isolate to his shoulder, right? If we choose to, right? Making it the only shoulder he can pivot on, right? That means that we can also shut down that type of pivot. Can you try to rotate for me, sir? All right, so I can shut that pivot down, making sure it's isolated and it can't tuck any further, right? And I just work it up. Does that make sense? Okay, so you'll find greater success when you get some type of stoppage, right? Because if this stoppage isn't here, right, and I'm doing all the right things, and I go this way, nothing, right? Stoppage is there, I go to pry, right? He now can't slip off of it. Does that make sense? Okay, and the last line of defense that you have to worry about is his other hand, right? If his other hand starts to come to his elbow, you can pry all you want. You're just gonna slip off, right? So say I do everything right. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna get this dude, right, I'm gonna get it. Oh, I'm gonna get it. Right? So the thing you have to beat, the next thing, right? So even saying I was underneath it, right? Like this, and then his other hand starts to come in there. You see what happens? So that's why our chest is also kind of key, right? So let's say we're going, right? I do my stuff, right? I'm going, he tries to get his hand in there. I should be able to drive and control. Can you get your hand in there, sir? See now, even if he starts to fight that, we can now build up into a like both elbow inside positioning. Does that make sense? Right? Anytime that you can get people's elbows like this, is real bad for them and real good for you. Does that make sense? Right? We covered that before. I don't know if you were here for that. Anyway, so that would be a good goal to get to, right? So we were here, right? We're gonna work it, right? We're not catching it. That elbow, we can shut it down with our chest, right? You see I'm pressing down with it. You see how my hips are kind of driving slightly forward, right? So what I'm gonna do after that is I'm gonna own underneath it, right? Maintaining the same exact principles that I did for this, I'm owning that inside space again, right? And I need to get, in both instances, right here. Does that make sense?
The higher you are, the better, essentially, or?
Not necessarily. I could be higher, right? Let's say I go higher. I'm gonna open your hands just so I don't smoosh nothing, right? And now it's not better, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So there's a limit. Right here is as high as I want to go because I get past that.
Yep. Okay.
So like this is a haptic field, and there's gonna be tension determines how high I can go. Because I could go super high, right? But I'd have to have tension on the other side for this to work. See how high I am? I broke the rule, right? Can you turn away from me though? So did I break the rule? No, I didn't, right? But that's because the tension is there and all the same principles, right? Because I could go, and we could be controlling this high, right? It doesn't break any of the rules. But as soon as you don't have the control, then you broke the rule. So, no, there's not a thing that's too high, but yes, there's a thing that's too high. That probably doesn't make sense, but
It does, I guess.
you can break the rule when you get better,
I see.
right? So like, you should really not go past the armpits, right? If you go past the armpits, you should be, right, losing control, going for a finish, basically, right? This is how you would do any limb extension type of thing. Make sense?
Yep.
Wouldn't recommend it, but you know, you do you. So we're gonna be here, come across, here, keeping hips, chest down, work it up, right?
Are you pinching with that far side elbow? So when you're putting pressure down, like onto his shoulder to keep that shoulder down at all?
Do you mean
Yeah,
like
that one
this?
that's on the yeah.
No,
Okay.
I prefer this.
Okay.
I think this causes more exposure, causes only one pivot point, where here, if I pull him, right, and I pinch it, or if I do it like this, I'm making this the pivot point, right, and I have no base on that side. So if he decides to chop, right, like literally if he just takes this hand, chopped, right, what do I have to stop out there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's not strong. So like me personally, I like to try to put all their weight onto this pivot side, right, and then work it, right, because like if he could roll all day towards this side, right, because I got both avenues where I could post out. On this side, not so much. Personal preference though, because this would work just fine if you're using your knee to pry up.
Yeah.
So let's say we're doing all the same thing, right? I'm gonna get in, I'm gonna pinch it, and you see how I took my knee up,
Yeah.
right? But you see how my weight's actually going sideways,
Yeah.
right? And you see how I'm going sideways, right? You can do it, sure. I just prefer to have,
You have to control that pivot side first.
I think so, me, but you know, what do I know? Does that make sense? All right, so when you do this again, I want you to focus on those kind of like effects. Now realize that those can be effects that you can do in more than one spot, but go play. So we're here, right, we don't control the inside positioning yet. I now control the inside positioning. I'm going to take the same hand that is underneath, I'm going to grab the armpit, tricep, whatever you want to fucking call it, don't care. Grab his armpit. Put your head on the outside of it, right? If they are smart, they're not gonna just sit here. They're going to start to turn, right? They're going to give you back exposure themselves. Otherwise, you're just gonna choke them out. Does that make sense? If we go back and he does not move, right? I have this type of tricep grip. I literally just lock a figure 4, right? And I start to scoot down or get off to the side. He gonna go to sleep.
It's a DARS right there.
It's just an arm and choke, right? Makes sense? Now he could sit here and fight it, even if I was like, ooh, and I get off. And he sits here and fight it, but his course to get out is what? Either to turn towards me, which is to go right back into mount, right? I'll be like, cool, choom, right? And this is worse, in my opinion, right? I like to stay like this to begin with, but you know, each have their own game of how they play this thing, right? But I'm literally just getting my head past, like this, and his next course of reaction is gonna be to turn away, right? Instead of doing that S-sit, we are doing the knee tuck. See what I'm doing? I'm putting my knee into his shoulder blades, right? To where I'm filling the space, or if he tried to cover it back up, aka he tried to lay his back to the floor, even if we do succeed in that, right, he will be traveling upon me, not on the ground. So therefore I can fill the space. I can out-rotate him. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, so we've tucked that elbow nice and high, right? You see how my hand's still here? I will say, if you would like, right, you do not have to go directly to the back yet. You can go even higher, right? You see how my knee is here now, behind his head, right? You see how my other foot is replacing where my arm was, right? It is now in his armpit. I mean, my other leg is in his armpit now. Does that make sense? Right? So it would be like this, right? And from here, right, you should be making some kind of contact with their body with this hand, because you're literally just gonna roll back. Does that make sense? Right? So whatever kind of contact you make, aka grabbing elbow, grabbing the hand, right? Because if they're connected, I mean, they don't want to be not connected, because you're like, I'm gonna break this, right? So they're gonna start to try to connect, right? Just pull, right? And then from here, you have the choice of going over, right? Or fighting for that inside positioning, because your knee, right, I'm sorry, right, is gonna be on the inside, right? So you can peel it and kick it. Peel it and kick it. Make sense? So your knee is literally right here, right? You can use your own hand to cup your own thigh or any of that kind of stuff. I don't recommend that, but like you can. I prefer just to keep the claw right and to take my knee and to basically pry just a little bit on the shoulder, right? Trying to flatten him back out basically, and then kick it. That's if you want this high guard. I don't really care. Just as a concept, you can do it, right? So you're going here, right? Super basic. Walk the hand up, keep the control, get the head down and controlled into the inside positioning, right? And you can either force this. You see how I took my head, my foot, took it to his hip, and I rotated him. Then I'll come back in. Sorry, I realize I'm a little tight there. All right, so you should be here, right? Maintaining control, right? Boom. Pull them into your lap. See, I have a bottom hook. I have bottom hook positioning, right? All of this is going to maintain my control, even if I don't have anything on this side, right? He tries to escape, right? He's either going to give me the access to this side, right? Or he has to beat these, right? And to beat both of them, it's going to be a little hard, right? Because I should be doing things with these hands and these legs, right? But I have both bottom positionings, which means that he has to travel along me to escape. Make sense? Cool, cool. So again, basic, super basic elbow walk. Head and arm choke style, right? If you want to force it yourself, you're going to take almost like a little step this direction. You see this, where my foot is? You take a little step. So I can cause this kind of split in his leg. I can even come on top of his leg. Do not do this unless you are trying to secure a type of mount. If you want back, you want the leg on the inside. If you put it on the outside and you try to do the same thing, right, now he's just gonna run. Does that make sense?
One more time.
Yeah. I do use this positioning, right? Basically taking a small hype step, right? You see how my body weight's different now, right? You see how we're dragging him, right? Do not put this foot on the outside unless you plan on staying in a type of mount ride position, right? This type of mount position is very strong, right? The problem is if they rotate super hard, right? They shouldn't be able to beat you, but if they do beat you, right, you do not have the bottom hook, right? So they can just run away. Does that make sense? I have no connection to him other than my hand, right? And if we keep going, that's a super weak hold. So try to keep your foot on the inside. Otherwise, you might feel like a silly goose, right? Jump, jump, jump. So we're gonna come here, right? We wanna force it ourselves. I'm gonna take the scoop, right? And here, I'm staying on the inside positioning, right? You see how my leg is pinning this other leg, right? I'm splitting his legs, right? Once that leg split is there, I come here, and this leg is now going to hook this one. Makes sense? All right? And now I'm going to pull them. Make sense? You can go double unders, you can keep claw ride. You start to establish your choice. I don't care. It's all back control stuff. But I just want you to know that those elbow hikes, where you take people's inside positioning, right, is super important. Make sense? This is a super easy way to get to the back. Oftentimes neglected because when people do this, they think they're going for an arm bar.
You mean like when someone?
When you do this, most people get too hungry for a finish, right? So they'll hike it up, right? And they'll be like, they'll do something like this, and then they'll give positioning away, right? To try to go for an arm bar, and they'll end up on bottom most of the time because they have to do all this maneuver, and they just have to get to their knees. If they got to their knees, they win, right? And you help them rotate the direction they wanted to go, right? So if you are going to be hungry, you can go for an arm bar. I would recommend, right? We're gonna get you to this type of control, right? We're gonna hike it up, right? And you're gonna replace this hand, right, with your foot. Exiting, like so, right? And you're gonna connect your own hand to your foot, right? Now, this type of inside positioning is really easy to get to, right? What does he got to stop me, right? So let's say he keeps his hands controlled, and he tries to turn towards me and that kind of other stuff, right? I'm literally sitting in the space he wants to try to fill, right? So now my only course, right, is to get over his head. Well, I actually don't need to get over his head because my hand's here, right? So now my next course of action is actually just to walk my hand, right? So I'm going to take and walk the hand, right? And he can try to, like, can you try to get your elbow free, basically? So we're here. You see how there's very little I had to do with this arm bar, right? I didn't have to sit in any wonky way, right? I'm essentially coming like I would take the back, right? Except I'm now putting my foot like this. And it would look like I was in an S if I stayed like this, but I'm just keeping this leg closer to where I'm like, could almost touch my feet together, right? So I'm just putting my foot underneath the head, and I'm gonna just grab my own shit, all right? Now, he can try to get away from right now, right, in this position. Right, I'm tucking my foot, right? I am filling in this space, and I'm holding where his neck is, right? So this is really limiting what he has. Now, if he gets really big with his shoulders, right, he starts to escape, air quote, right? But the problem with getting really big with your shoulders is it makes them very weak because they get further away from your body. Does that make sense? Tracking? Okay. But, you know, I actually don't like this positioning as much as, like, you know, just take the back. You have way more finishes from the back, right? Boom, boom, right? We're already here. And if you really want to stick to the arm bar, you want it so bad, take the high guard positioning, and it's just right there. Make sense?
Yeah.
Tracking? Okay. All right, let's go to people's backs. Go.
Ciao.